And now let's talk about how big is the LPG issue in India. A war thousands of kilometers away is now hitting kitchens, factories and industries in India. The escalating conflict in West Asia has disrupted critical global energy routes, and the ripple effect is being felt across the country. LPG shortages are being reported in multiple cities, restaurants are warming of forced shutdowns, industries are slowing operations, and sectors are already facing supply stress. At the same time, India is also dealing with disruptions in LNG supplies, with the government activating contingency measures to prioritize essential sectors like fertiliser production and food security. As global fuel supply chains face pressure, authorities are closely monitoring stocks and working to stabilize the situation. Let's first tell you about the LPG crisis. The centre is urging citizens not to panic, even as emergency measures are being rolled out to stabilize supplies. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held high-level discussions today with Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to address the shortage of LPG triggered by the escalating conflict. Oil refineries have been instructed to boost LPG production and prioritize domestic consumption. A 25-day booking rule has also been introduced to prevent hoarding and black marketing, while imported LPG is being diverted to essential non-domestic sectors such as hospitals and educational institutions. At the same time, state governments are holding emergency meetings and monitoring fuel reserves as the crisis spreads across several regions. The centre says domestic LPG supply is being prioritized and insists there is no reason for panic. But on the ground, the impact is already visible. From Bengaluru to Jaipur, Pune to Morbi, supply disruptions are affecting businesses and daily life. Restaurants are warning that they may shut kitchens, industry dependent on gas are halting production, and households in some cities are facing delays in cylinder deliveries. Even crematorium services in one major city are now being affected due to the shortage of gas. In Bengaluru, restaurants says commercial LPG supplies have dried up and many kitchens could shut down within hours. PG accommodations housing more than 10 lakh residents are warning food supplies may last barely a week if the crisis continues. In Pune, municipal corporation has been forced to shut down 18 gas-powered crematoriums due to lack of fuel. In Morbi, in Gujarat, one of the world's largest ceramic manufacturing hubs, more than 100 factories have halted operations and thousands of workers have already lost their jobs as gas supply dwindles. In Jaipur, consumers are reporting week-long delays in cylinder deliveries, with distributors saying bottling plants have only few days of stock left. And in Tamil Nadu, the state governments have asked oil companies to urgently provide details of LPG stocks, while Chennai Hotel Association have written to the Prime Minister warning that the restaurants could soon face severe disruption.
एसेंशियल कमोडिटी 1955 एक एक्ट आया था, उसमें था कि भाई अगर विशेष जो महत्वपूर्ण खाद्य पदार्थ हैं या फिर पेट्रोकेमिकल है, इनकी कमी के कारण अगर सरकार उनकी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए अलग अलग टाइप के नियम बनाती है साधन की उपलब्धता के हिसाब से, तो उसी हिसाब से सरकार ने ये नियम लागू किया कि होटल, रेस्टोरेंट और ढाबों के अंदर में गैस की सप्लाई अवरुद्ध की गई है। जो क्राइसिस अभी आई है, क्योंकि ये क्राइसिस को इंडिया की नहीं है, ये पूरे विश्व के अंदर में पेट्रोल और गैस की सप्लाई अभी अवरुद्ध हुई है। इसके कारण भाव भी बढ़े हैं और निश्चित रूप से कमी भी आई है।
Next 3-4 days we don't know what is going to happen. In fact, today we have received a lot of calls saying that we are not getting gas, supplies are not coming in regularly. So this will trigger the market. And what happens now, people will start hoarding. Instead of stocking 2 cylinders, they'll stock 4 cylinders. And people who are supplying also, they will also start holding because their favorite customer they want to give. So all these things are going to start.
बेंगलोर में कुछ होटल बंद हुए हैं, तो हम लोगों ने उस न्यूज़ को देख करके इंक्वायरी शुरू करी अपने सप्लायर से, जो हमारे गैस के सप्लायर हैं। तो ये पता चला कि हाँ, किल्लत तो है, पीछे से सप्लाई नहीं आ रही है। तो अभी हमारे सप्लायर की तरफ से ये कहा गया है कि 1-2 दिन तक तो हम सप्लाई कर सकते हैं, उसके बाद अगर पीछे से सप्लाई नहीं आया तो मुश्किल होगी। उसका फिर मेक शिफ्ट अरेंजमेंट हम लोगों ने करना शुरू किया है। एक तो इंडक्शन हम लोग परचेज कर रहे हैं, इंडक्शन है भी हमारे पास, लेकिन इंडक्शन पर कॉमर्शियली बहुत करना मुश्किल काम है होटल को चलाना।
युद्ध से थोड़ा सा फ़र्क पड़ गया है, जिसमें अभी क्या बैकलॉग चल रहा है। कस्टमर पर जैसे कुछ रूल लगाए, अभी 25 डेज़ के बुकिंग नहीं हो पा रही है। पहले कस्टमर ये था कि 1 महीने में 2 सिलेंडर ले लेता, आज बुक करा लिया तो कल मिल जाता था। अब 25 लोग लगने से कस्टमर इसलिए थोड़ा सा परेशानी हो रही है सर। और 7 डेज़ के बाद होम डिलीवरी हो पा रही है। कॉमर्शियल सिलेंडर पर अभी रोक लगा दी गई है, जैसे अभी क्या घरेलू को देखते हुए कि पूर्ति नहीं हो पाए तो क्या इसलिए उसको रोक दिया है। शादी ब्याह और रेस्टोरेंट सब में भी क्लोज है सर।
एक हफ्ते से यहाँ पे कमर्शियल सिलेंडर्स का सप्लाई बंद हो चुका है, इसलिए अभी कल से पूना और मुंबई में बहुत सारे होटल बंद हुए हैं। अभी हम लोग भी सेम प्रॉब्लम फेस कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे। अभी हमारा हर रोज का रिक्वायरमेंट मिनिमम 6 सिलेंडर्स का है। अभी 1 या 2 हमको सप्लाई दिया हुआ है, बाकी सिलेंडर के वजह से अभी हमारा और एक या 2 दिन होटल चल सकता है, और 2 दिन के अंदर अगर सप्लाई नहीं हुआ है तो हमको होटल बंद करने की नौबत आ जाएगा।
अभी एलपीजी का बहुत सारा शॉर्टेज आ रहा है, यानी कि अभी जो इसराइल में जो युद्ध हो रहे हैं, इसके कारण हमारे यहाँ पर धंधे पे बहुत बड़ा असर हो रहा है। तो उसकी वजह से बहुत सारी दिक्कतें आ रही है। जो हमारे से वेंडर्स है जिनको हम लोग डेली गैस लेते थे, उनको अभी कभी भी कॉल करो, वो हमें कभी भी हमें कौन सा ही बोलते हो कि आपके पास एलपीजी गैस अवेलेबल नहीं है। तो हम भी उनको बोलते जरा कुछ तो रिक्वेस्ट करते, 2-4 वेंडर्स को हम लोग रिक्वेस्ट करते, तो भी वो गैस देने के लिए हमें मना ही कर रहे हैं। ऐसा चलेगा तो हम भी कैसा धंधा चलाएंगे।
The government says it is actively monitoring the situation and has put several measures in place to manage the LPG supply chain. A 3-member committee comprising executive directors from Indian Oil, BPCL and HPCL have been formed to assess the LPG requirements of the commercial sector such as restaurants, hotels and industries and ensure that the genuine demand is met. Oil companies are already in touch with restaurants and hotel associations to address supply concerns. At the same time, states have been asked to take strict action against hoarding or black marketing of fuels. Government sources insist that no LPG distributor warehouse in the country is running empty and supplies are continuing as mandated, with replenishment taking place roughly every 2.5 days. Authorities also say the number of domestic LPG consumers have not changed. Household supply remains the top priority. Officials have also clarified that the recent price hike in domestic LPG was a decision taken earlier and is not linked to the current geopolitical situation. The government is also warning against deliberate rumours being circulated about shortages and is urging people not to panic. And what is important here is that the government has assured not only they have the reserve, but they also have the wherewithal to sustain the disruptions within the global market. Now let's listen to some of the political bites.
There are some challenges, but like the Minister of Foreign Affairs assured the House yesterday, and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister has repeatedly been assuring that the energy security of the country is foremost priority for the government. I would like to assure the people of Karnataka, especially the Hoteliers Association of Karnataka, as well as other people, that the priority right now would be to address the domestic consumption of people, as well as taking care of the other CNG and LNG needs of the country. Like has been said repeatedly, the utmost priority at this moment is to protect the energy security of the country, and the government of India is doing this with.
The entire country is boiling. All hotels wanted to close them because they doesn't have gas. All prices will shoot up. So all have to look at firewood or electric stove or kerosene stove. Even there is no kerosene also for all these stoves. So it will be a very great problem in the entire country. I think in Karnataka, all hotel associations have decided to stop their restaurants. It is a big setback for the entire hotel industry and all the, including the hospitals.
एलपीजी के सिलेंडर का रेट 55 रुपए बढ़ा दिया सरकार ने। अब आप बता रहे हैं कि बेंगलुरु में, मुंबई में, बाकी जगह के ऊपर जो कुकिंग गैस है उसकी शॉर्टेज शुरू हो गई है, और अभी तो वहां पे युद्ध शुरू ही हुआ है। अगर युद्ध लंबा चल गया तो भारत की जो ऊर्जा सुरक्षा है, भारत की जो स्ट्रेटेजिक इकोनॉमी है, उसके ऊपर इसका क्या असर पड़ेगा।
Disruption is not limited to LPG alone. India is also facing a significant hit to its LNG supplies, with nearly 40% of the flow affected amid the ongoing Gulf crisis. To manage the situation, the government has activated an optimization plan aimed at ensuring critical sectors are protected. Priority is being given to fertilizer production, which is crucial for food security. Fertilizer stocks have already been increased to around 17 point, which is 7 million tons, and some plants are undergoing scheduled maintenance during the current low demand period, so production can ramp up smoothly later. At the same time, India is diversifying its LNG sourcing, with nearly 60% of the supplies now coming from non-West Asian regions. Countries such as Australia and Canada are being explored for additional shipments. Officials say non-essential sectors may need to adjust temporarily, but the aim is to keep food production and essential supply chains stable. The disruptions triggered by the West Asia war are now raising bigger questions about energy security. Is this the first major domestic impact of the conflict on LPG and LNG supplies? Is the current shortage just a temporary disruption or the start of a wider energy crunch? And if global energy routes remain under pressure, how prepared is India to protect both households and critical industries? On this, I am joined by Shweta Kothari, our Deputy Editor Business, Gautam Shankar, Bureau Chief, Bengaluru, Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General TERI, and Professor Bijan Mishra, Consumer Policy Expert. Thank you all of you for joining me. Let me straight away go to Shweta Kothari. Shweta, how deep is this crisis?
Well, let me first begin by saying, Karthikeya, to answer one of the questions that you put out on your screens right now, this is, as a matter of fact, first such spillover effect that India is witnessing 10 days since the war began. For the first time now, we are looking at a shortage of commercial LPG. Now, to put it in context, the numbers that you also shared with our viewers, about 80 to 85% of India's LPG needs come straight from the Strait of Hormuz. They pass through the Strait of Hormuz. About half of LNG needs also pass through Strait of Hormuz. So what we're essentially looking at today is government proactively trying to ration the quota of existing LPG and LNG that we have in the country, which means this, that for the first time now, hotels, restaurants, and across the country are feeling the pans. Throughout the morning and till evening as of today, we have heard from hotel associations in Chennai, in Pune, in Mumbai, speaking of the kind of shortage that they have as far as LPG is concerned. Some of them also ringing alarm bells today that they only have LPG that could last for the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, it's important to point out it's not just the shortage of commercial LPG which is a problem, because government continues to say that we have enough and more LPG to sustain us through the next 24 to 25 days. It's the fact that India has an eating out culture, especially places like Bengaluru, where about 4 to 5 million people eat out on a daily basis, including Chennai, Pune. Millions of people eat out. As a matter of fact, data suggests that about 300 million people in India eat out. Most of these places where they eat out frequently is because they don't have a domestic LPG connection, and they're usually people who are living outside of their homes. These are blue-collar workers, skilled laborers, people in PG, especially in cities like Pune, Bengaluru, Mumbai, and they are going to feel the pain and they're going to feel the heat of it to begin with. If, let's say, as hotel owners and associations are saying that many of these hotels and chains are likely to close down in the next couple of days if there's not enough supply of commercial LPG.
Absolutely. Gautam, why are so many eateries or restaurant owners complaining specifically in Bengaluru? Is there a city-specific issue there?
Absolutely, Karthika, because we have to keep in mind that when we talk about Bangalore, the South Indian dishes, especially dosas, the vadas, the medu vadas that we see, they depend heavily on LPG. Nearly 95% of the dishes here require gas, and we have never, the hoteliers have never seen a situation like this where they have to think about alternatives like this. And what are the alternatives that we're looking at? When I had just stepped out for lunch, I saw a few chefs of a four-star restaurant actually carrying plywood. So they are having to rely on temporary measures, be it electric stoves, the firewood, and kerosene stoves as well. That is the situation that we're looking at. And also the large-scale impact that we're looking in Bangalore right now is that tomorrow popular dishes like the masala dosa and the medu vada are going to be off the menu sheet, because these are heavily reliant on heat, and because the dosa tawas, they require constant heat. Even if you're not making dosas, 4 dosa tawas have to be constantly on in these major hotel chains. And now we've already seen the popular Vidyarthi Bhavan, which is a famous hotel in Bangalore, which serves around 2,000 dosas on a day, is already scaled it down to half. and restaurants are also putting up notices outside of outlets saying that they're limiting their menu to essential items like sandwiches and tandoor items.
This is an outrage. If you can't get your dosa or if your upma or medu vada, that's really an outrage. Professor Misra, the government says that we are well buffered in context of crude. We are, it's being told that India has independently struck agreements with 40 countries for the supply of crude oil. But I think there's a difference between when it comes to LNG, LPG, and the crude. We are specifically here talking about the LPG issue.
Yeah, my point is that as a consumer policy, we always believe in transparency and ensuring that there is credible data brought in the public domain, which is very important. Like when you hold any kind of a meeting, you have any kind of a negotiation going on, you have to ensure that it gels with what is there actually being seen in the public domain or on the ground. Now, we have to appreciate that we have laws which protect the consumer from hoarding, from profiteering, and things like that. So while we have these laws, the state governments play a very important role to ensure, like if you're talking about Bangalore, for example, the Karnataka government has a very responsible role to play where they should ensure that there is no hoarding, and they also need to do audits with the restaurants, because you can't go with what the restaurant owner is saying, that I am having short supply and creating a panic, within the community and the citizens, which is not good, which is not true, because that panic actually leads to a lot of also domestic hoarding. People who can do with one cylinder start keeping a kind of a standby as a second cylinder because that there is a kind of a panic created in the market. So we have to develop credible information, and the role media plays, like what you are doing today, this conversation is very important, because that conversation brings in truth, brings in the data, brings in all the transparency which we want, but we don't find state government intervention at all at any point of time. We see statement given by central government, but we don't find any statement given by the state governments that what are they doing. Because with technology, with a click of a button, you can come to know what is the stock in which dealer, where it is going. You can trace and track. You can very comfortably come to know that where the warehousing is, how much is the warehousing, having what kind of a stock. You can make all that information transparent, and that is what will make the government more credible, and that will make the consumer more.
So basically, Professor Misra, you are saying that there's a little bit of politics that is being added to the cauldron, state versus center.
Well, I'm always saying that let's not get into political debates.
Yes.
These are very well strategic, demand and supply strategic kind of a intervention, where there are officials who are working on it.
Okay.
The oil companies, those officials are there, they're monitoring it on a day-to-day basis. It is not a three-man committee which gets constituted to look into this. The three-man committee only can look into what is being provided to them. But what is there already, that needs to become and coming into public domain. When the Honorable Prime Minister is saying that the common man should not be.
No, the government has already activated ESMA. I mean to say, the fact that the government has activated ESMA just goes on to show the revolve. Dr. Vibha, we expected that some sort of exposure of the West Asian war will be on the Indian market. Is this the exposure we are talking about?
Well, I'll say this is direct, because see, when we talk of LPG, LNG and so on, it's already 40% of it which has been reduced. So therefore, while I agree with all the panelists, holding is one thing, but at the same time, we have to recognize that we are getting less. The other thing is, these things are not stored in bulk. You might be having one LPG cylinder at home and you'll be keeping one separate. Beyond that, you can't even do the holding. You look at hotels, again the same story, because it's dangerous to store very large numbers, and you require space, and it's not safe either. So what the problem today is, and the fear is, that the direct impact, and as it was mentioned, that there are large number of people, first of all, who are losing their jobs today, because whether we are talking of fertiliser industry, we are talking or elsewhere, and therefore it is unemployment. Second is those of many of the citizens, they don't even have kitchens at home. And therefore, whether it's a laborer or it is a student, for them, if they don't get food in these itineraries, it is a big problem. I'm not talking of those of us who go
but
just
I think
to
hoarding is an issue.
Yeah.
Dr. Dhawan,
But
you would remember even during pandemic, the hoarding took place, Things actually went off the shelf. I'll come to you.
Yeah.
I'll come to you, Professor Mishra.
But one thing which I would like to add is, as responsible citizens, let's also look at options. Why can't some of us who also have solar cookers at home, why don't we reduce our requirement for LPG? Why don't we move towards even using coal to some extent? Why not? Because that we have plenty
I think a lot of
stock
people are
within
using
the-
induction.
Yeah,
I have one
induction.
at home. I can say that I have one at home.
Yeah, and then of course, because till very recently we had come up with solar cooking, but the entire thing is very expensive. But then can we move towards that? Can we move towards agriculture residue-based briquettes? Because that reduces your load on the entire energy demand. You don't waste. So those are the things that where we should look into other options as well, and biogas. So biogas, rather than converting it into CNG, let's start using it for cooking purposes.
Basically, you're saying that diversify the fuel that is required for domestic consumption. Before I go to Shweta Kothari, Professor Mishra, you wanted to come in?
No, I just wanted to say that only, that you see, it is not that you wake up only during crisis. These are issues which needs to be planned, and that is why, people like us, we try to tell the government much before in terms of what kind of policies we should do, what kind of policies we should encourage, how consumer awareness is very important in our country, which is lacking. We don't have that kind of an awareness built way ahead to encourage consumers to have options, better options, and move to, kind of from non-conventional, conventional to non-conventional energy. And it is happening in our country. But I think it should be much more higher than what it is happening today. The state governments, I always say, play a very important role in consumer awareness and building that kind of a security and the trust within the system of the consumers. The consumers actually don't see that trust because they find all kinds of diverse kind of information, contradicting information. And that is where we come in to say that, the information should be credible, should be honest, should be transparent.
I think the bottom line is there shouldn't be any panic on the street. Shweta, what I want to know from you is, our crude supply chains are pretty much diversified. Is that the same case for LPG and LNG?
Not really, Kartikeya. Unfortunately, that's what many people are complaining. While we focused a lot on crude in the last 10 days of the war, in fact, majority of our crude already passes through Cape of Good Hope. 60% of our crude passes through Cape of Good Hope. We've increased that number to 70% now. So while we tried diversifying away from Strait of Hormuz as far as crude is concerned, it's not the same case with LPG and LNG. And that's where, hotel associations are blaming the government that they did not think it through. But the government is assuring people at this point. I think it's important to point out that we have enough and more stock, because India has evoked ESMA essentially to, to be able to ration whatever stock of LPG and LNG we have, and that is to support domestic LPG and gas cylinders that people can buy as opposed to commercial LPG. So it's a decision government has taken deliberately, while in the short run, restaurants and hotels are going to feel the pang. In the long run, at least in the next 20 days, we are still insulated. I think it's important to point that out, because a lot of people are worried today if domestic supply of LPG will also take a beating, whether there's going to be a crunch and they should start hoarding more cylinders. I think it's important to point out that we have enough and more domestic LPG. It's the commercial LPG that is a problem today.
Okay, the commercial LPG is a problem, not the domestic LPG. That's not an issue. But as our panelists were saying, Gautam, do you think there's a bit of a politics here, Delhi and Bengaluru, because, the BJP is at the center and the Congress is in power in Karnataka. So, as you say, thoda chabi de di issue ko.
Absolutely, Kartikeya. And just before that, as one of our panelists was mentioning there, consumer awareness is important. But one point that I also want to point out here is that the awareness among the restaurant and the hotel owners as well, they have basically been caught by surprise. They have never been in a situation like this. just before this program, I was talking to 3 prominent hotel owners as well. They are saying that why was there no policy? Because we have no idea if a crisis like this develops, how are we supposed to act? We are we are talking about hoarding and such, but what we are having to do right now is having to go back to charcoal grills and all such. But also, when we talk about politics here itself, yes, DK Shivakumar and the Chief Minister Sidramaya has also spoken about how the cutting off of gas to hotels is hitting not just these hotels, but also business owners and also students in PG and senior citizens who rely on tiffin services, etc. And what we have as a response from the BJP MPs from Karnataka, be it Tejasvi Surya from Bangalore South or Dr. Sudhakar K from Chikbalapur, they are seeking urgent intervention from Hardeep Singh Puri. But besides that, there is no real talk of what is the kind of shift or what are the kind of changes that these hoteliers need to really prepare for, because they are panicking right now, and there needs to be sort of a policy and regulation to make and give them guidelines that we do have a supply of commercial cylinders and commercial LPG, which will last you for these many days. After that, we will look into it. And also another point that is being raised by the hotels is that while domestic sector is being prioritized, why is the hotel and the hospitality sector being put in the last in the pedestal here? Why are we not being treated as an essential service as well? Because we provide food to several people, be it the labor class or even the IT sector as well. So that is one of the prominent questions that have been raised here as well, Karthik.
Okay, Dr. Dhawan, you spoke about non-conventional energy change. I mean, so is that feasible? A lot of people are now, you have those piped LPGs in the semi-rural areas, semi-urban areas, you have the gas canisters. But do you think that this transition is possible, that, apart from LPG, other cooking fuels can be introduced, because that requires infrastructure, supply chains, and how much of that is being used? If I may ask you, madam.
Well, we are not using it much, especially in the metros. We are still dependent, especially in the villages, the rural part of the country. They have improved cook stoves. So therefore, the total demand of the fuel is reduced, but they are not using LPG and others in spite of the government subsidy on LPG being given to them, because wood is free for them. But then it is that, I should say, at least most of us who believe in renewable energy, we do have solar cookers. So solar cookers at home. So we should try to do 50%.
But isn't that cumbersome? I'm sorry. I mean, so quick cooking, solar cooking, isn't that cumbersome? I mean, so asking someone to use, solar, as in, when people are so rushed for the time. I mean, so it has to ultimately help a middle class family in a metro.
Yeah. It's planning, because you plan for your dinner in the morning and you just put it in the solar cooker in the morning. And
but how many people, madam, would have the sun? People live in flats, that is also, you require a house for that, You
do have balconies. You do have balconies. That's what I say. It is the way you look at it. So, and the thing is, it should become in solar, like IOCL, they had brought out solar cooking systems. Simply something like LPG cook stove is there, but it's expensive.
It's so like, I've really run short of time. It's like those, debates we have with Shweta on the electric cars. Everyone loves an electric car, but, go out, leave Delhi, then how many charging stations do you have? And, then you have the anxiety, where are we able to come back or not? Everyone loves a good electric car, but then how there has to be an infrastructure to it. I just thank you, all of you. I've really run short of time, Professor. I've really run short of time. I thank you, because, this is all the time I had allocated for the point one. Thank you. And it's an important issue, because, there should not be any panic. Government has said that we are well buffered and they will not allow the prices to fluctuate. But yes, on ground, people are behaving the way they would, because there is a war that is going on in West Asia, and it is into your drawing room being right there.